Hi friends, welcome to our channel. So in this video, we are going to discuss about two types of exception in Java, as well as we'll discuss the usage of throws keyword in Java exception handling. Already in our previous video, we have discussed how to handle the exception by using try catch keyword, as well as we have discussed usage of finally keyword in Java exception handling. In case if you haven't watched that video, so the link is available in the description. So please watch it. So now let us get into this video. So first, before getting into throws keyword, so first we'll understand what is the difference between checked and unchecked exception in Java. So generally we can divide a Java exception into two types. One is checked exception, another one is unchecked exception. So now I am just going to write two simple statement. With the help of these two statements, we'll understand the difference between checked and unchecked exception. Let me write a code int a equal to 10/0. So already we know that because of this slash by 0, it is going to throw arithmetic exception. So already in our first video, I mean in try catch video, we have discussed these things. So finally because of the slash by 0, it is going to throw arithmetic exception. Let me write one more code. This is a code. I'm trying to use file reader to get IO exception. So by using this file reader, I can open a file for reading purpose. And look at this line. Syntax wise, my line is correct. I mean, my object creation is correct. So this is a correct syntax to open abc.txt file for reading purpose. But you can look at the error message. It is saying that unhandled exception, file not found exception. So already in our first video we have discussed file not found exception is the subtype of IO exception. If the file abc.txt is exit in my machine, then there will not be any issue. In case if the file doesn't exit in my machine, during runtime JVM will try to open that abc.txt and which is not existing in my machine. In that case, it will throw file not found exception. So finally, you can look at these two lines. In both line, there is a possibility of exception during runtime. So here because of slash by 0, I will be getting arithmetic exception. So here also I am going to get file not found exception during runtime if the file abc.txt is not existing in my machine. So finally in both line there is a possibility of getting exception during runtime. But you can look at the difference between first line and the second line. In case of slash 0, I am not getting a compile time error. So which means compiler is giving an option to the programmer. If I wish, I can handle slash by 0 or arithmetic exception, else I can leave it. It's optional. But you can look at the second line, it is giving a compile time error, which means the compiler is saying that I have to handle file not found exception. So hope friends you are getting some idea. So finally, in case of first line slash by 0, I will be getting an arithmetic exception. But in case of arithmetic exception, I am not getting a force from the compiler. If I wish, I can handle, else I can leave it. But in case of file not found exception, so the compiler is forcing me to handle this exception. Otherwise, the compiler will not allow me to compile this code. So this kind of exception is checked exception. If you are getting a force from the compiler to handle that exception, so then I will say it's a checked exception. So finally, if there is a checked exception code in my program, I have to handle it. There is no option, otherwise I cannot compile it. So this type of exception is unchecked exception. So these are the two different types of exception in Java. So one is checked exception. So where I will get a force from the compiler and I have to handle it as a programmer. I have to handle checked exception. Otherwise, I cannot compile my code. But in case of unchecked, it is up to programmer wish. If the programmer want to handle, they can handle it. Else they can leave it. So friends, we got the difference between checked and unchecked exception in Java. So now I think we can move to throws keyword. I can use throws keyword in case of checked as well as unchecked exception. I can use throws keyword in case of checked as well as unchecked exception. But mostly we are using throws keyword in case of checked exception. So I'm repeating the point. So throws keyword I can use it for any type of exception, not only for checked. Checked as well as unchecked. In both case I can use throws keyword, but mostly we are using throws keyword in case of checked exception. You can see the Eclipse option. It is giving two quick fixes, right? So one is it is saying that our as usual I need to surround with try catch. Another one is it is giving an option I can go with the throws declaration. So already in our first video itself we are familiar how to use try catch and with the help of try catch how to handle the exception. So the second option is you can see I am getting another second option is I can handle this exception by using throws keyword. So let me use throws declaration. You can see the moment I use throws declaration, the compile time error is gone. You can see how I am using throws keyword. In my method, I will be using throws and I will say file not found exception. So like this, you can list out any type of exception. For example, if I want to handle arithmetic exception as well, I can do. So that's why in the beginning I mentioned by using throws keyword, we can handle any type of exception. I mean, we can apply or we can use throws keyword in case of checked as well as unchecked exception, right? But mostly we are going for checked exception. Let me make it checked exception. I mean, file not found exception. So finally, you can see the moment I use this throws keyword, yes, so my error is gone. I mean, my compile time error is gone. Now let me run this code and will understand whether this throws keyword is handling the exception or not. You know that you just assume that in my machine I don't have a file abc.txt. Now let us run this code and will observe whether this throws keyword is handling the exception or not. You can look at the error message. It is giving a runtime error saying that file not found exception. And you can read the error message abc.txt. The system cannot find the file. So which means throws keyword is not handling the exception. So throws keyword is avoiding the compile time error in case of checked exception. So finally, if I want to handle the exception, I have only one option. I have to go for try catch. So try catch is the one and only option to handle the exception. So finally, by using throws keyword, we can avoid compile time error in case of checked exception. If I want to handle this exception, yes, I have to go for try and catch. So now definitely you may get a question. Then what is the usage of this throws keyword? So already try catch is there. With the help of try catch only I can handle the exception. So which means what is the need of throws keyword? Is it just to avoid compile time error or any other further use? Let me change this code slightly. Let me define a method. I'm making a method as static so that I no need to create an object just to make the code as little short. Let me say the method name is m1. Let us assume that inside this code, inside this method, I'm just writing my checked exception code. Just assume that this main method, this m1 method is having some file related business logic code. Just assume that I have a business logic code inside this M1 method, which is manipulating file or reading a file or deleting a file or maybe writing a data into the file. Any business logic code, you just assume that. So finally, inside M1, I have a business logic code which is related to file. And as we already familiar, all the files related code is under IO exception, which is checked exception. So which means I need to write a exception handling mechanism as well. Yes, simply I cannot go for throws. We checked in the previous program. So throws is not handling the exception. So finally in the real-time application, I here since I'm using IO related business logic, which means I have to write down my exception handling mechanism as well. Just assume that this is my exception handling code. Nothing but try catch. I will be using try catch to handle IO exception or file not found exception or EOF exception. Nothing but the end of file exception. So these exception handling mechanism I have to write inside my M1 method along with my business logic code. Yes, my business logic is completely related to IO exception. So now I hope slowly you are getting some idea. So you know that in real time scenario, we will always separate the codes, right? So this is not a correct approach, right? Writing business logic code along with exception handling code. So this is not a correct approach. So in business logic, in real time application, always so we have to separate our codes so that it will be easy to maintain by the new programmer. So in that case, what I will do, I will cut this exception handling code here. Inside this M1, I will ensure that I have only my business logic code. But at the same time, I need to handle this file not found exception. Otherwise, I cannot compile. So in that case, what I will do, I will go for add throws declaration. So finally, you can see inside M1, I have write down only my business logic code. But in the business logic code, so there are some checked exception code, right? But I am not handling over here. That's why I am mentioning throws keyword. I will make another one method. This M2 method is going to call my business logic method M1. You can look at the error message. It is invoking M1. In M1, I have an exception code which is not handled. So here also I can go for either throws declaration or I can go for try catch. But what I will do, I will be enclosing with try catch. So finally inside M2 method, I have my exception handling code. In M1 method, I have my business logic. So this is the main usage of throws keyword. So finally, by using throws keyword, mostly we are using throws keyword in case of checked exception. So by using throws keyword, we can avoid compile time error in case of checked exception. So which means inside that particular method, we are ensuring that we are writing only the business logic code. But the one who is going to call this method, for example, right now M2 is calling M1 method. So he is the responsible person. I mean, the M2 is a responsible person to handle this M1 method exception. So finally, inside M1 method, I have only business logic. In M2 method, I have a exception handling code. So which means I'm separating my business logic as well as exception handling code so that it is easy to maintain, or the application will be, I mean, the application code will be very readable one. And also we have to know one more point. In our first video, I mean in try catch video, we have discussed the Java exception hierarchy. In that hierarchy, we have seen runtime exception, IO exception, and SQL exception, and etc. etc. Many more exceptions are there. So, runtime exception and its subclasses. So, runtime exception and its subclasses all are will fall under unchecked exception. Nothing but your array index out of bounds exception, arithmetic exception, number format exception. I mean runtime exception and its child classes, subclasses. So they will fall under unchecked exception. The remaining all the exception other than runtime exception, the remaining all it may be IO exception or it may be a SQL exception. So remaining everything will fall under checked exception. So hope friends we are clear about what is the difference between checked and unchecked exception in Java. Also we are clear about the usage of throws keyword in a real life application. Thanks friends for watching this video. So if you like this video, please subscribe and click on the bell symbol so that as soon as I upload a new video, you will be getting a notification. Also, you can share it with your friends.